Fred, and welcome to this webinar.
Hello, Céline. Happy to be there with you for our first webinar together.
Yes, so the webinar today is 20 years of brand protection in the pharmaceutical industry, challenges and solutions. So we'll go through this journey of 20 years with you today. And the first thing we would like to discuss is, so when I joined AlpVision more than 17 years ago, AlpVision was already a profitable company, but it was really the beginning of the journey with the pharmaceutical industry. So the question now is how it started and what brought us to the pharma industry.
Well, I think what brought us in the pharma industry was the fact that we were matching exactly the requirements of the pharma industry.
Yes, that was really something that was pragmatic, like.
Yes, as you said, pragmatic. They were looking for a solution for authentication, not serialization, just yes, no answer. Is it authentic or is it fake? And they had a very specific requirement, which was invisibility. Because in the pharma industry, the thing is, if you modify how your package looks, like this one, for instance, if you modify whatever, then you have to go to the regulators and ask for having your package validated again. This may not sound like a big problem, but if you have 10,000 of new packages each year, this is a big problem.
Yes, 10,000 of new SKUs.
Yes.
That's really something that may be a problem if you have to revalidate each and every SKU.
Yes.
So that was one of the biggest advantage, but also it was something that was very pragmatic in the sense that we only solved the problem, not less, not more. So we did not combine it with a lot of fancy feature. We really had one solution, and then we let the customer decide with what they want to combine it.
Yes, absolutely. The problem that they had at that time is that the only way they had to make sure a package was authentic was to look at details. And details, you had actually to be an expert to know those details. So among those details, there were like how the package is cut, what is the radius of curvature of the cutting. So big companies are typically like 30, 40 offices worldwide. So they had to train each of the people in each of this country to know what to look for each SKU.
Yes, and I recall from some customers, we were able to see some of their files, and there were lots of PDFs, and they were also struggling to store those PDFs because those PDFs were not the same for example, Italy than Germany, because it was not the same printers and not the same exact solutions implemented. So when we came up with our solution, it was also a big simplification of the process.
Yes, because indeed, instead of letting the human being and the expert decide whether it's authentic or not, what we came with is a machine that can tell automatically by analyzing the picture and giving the answer. So that means you move away all the training process, all the ambiguity, all the variability of the PDF that you mentioned, and you have a simple answer. You have a machine that tells you immediately the answer.
Yes, you don't have to be an expert to decide, okay, I see this on the PDF, but there is a margin of error and I have to have some tolerance to accept or not accept.
Yes.
And this may be very complicated if you want to do lots of detections. And in order to be able to come with this very simple solution of detecting with a smartphone now and with a scanner at that time, we came up with a technology which is called Cryptoglyph. So maybe we can, I will share a slide here. We can show what is Cryptoglyph.
Yes, actually, what you can see on your screen, on the left-hand side, you have typically what is inside the artwork PDF that the pharma company have that describes exactly what is going to be printed. And what you can see on the top right is actually a cryptoglyph. And this is a cryptoglyph which is very specific. This is in the varnish layer. So it looks like gray, but it's just color coding because in practice it will be transparent, okay?
Yes.
And so you see gray and white areas, and gray means that there is varnish, white means there is no varnish. And the trick is that by just changing the PDF with this indication, the printer is going to create a flexographic plate that includes this particular pattern. That means the varnish will not be totally uniform, that will be a sort of invisible pattern that we can detect. And the same stands for what you can see on the bottom right. Well, it's hard to see, but if you look carefully, you can
You see the arrow, the
Yes.
mouse here. There are two little dots here, and there is one here. So we don't see them.
Yeah, because actually, if you consider the DPI of this file, the nominal resolution is such that this is going to be about 15 micrometer of diameter, this dot once printed. So it's strictly, totally invisible for the naked eye.
Yes, and this is something that that can be done by any printer anywhere in the world. And so we have either a possibility to have the dots, as Fred said, or the varnish. So it can really adapt to the needs of the brand. And when we spoke about the varnish earlier, Fred mentioned varnished and non-varnished area. Well, it's not completely true. It's true in the file, in the digital file, but it's not really true in reality.
Yes, because as you can see on this schematic drawing, you can see that when you create a hole in the digital file, once printed, actually the hole will fill a little bit, which is very important. That means that the artwork is still protected, but we have now a three-dimensional modulation of the surface. And this is exactly what we detect for authentication.
Yes, and this is the same principle if we use a varnish or if we use the dots, because with the varnish, even if the holes are not complete, we see those modulations. With the dots, we clearly have some small dots that cannot be seen. And we can also have small holes in plain colors.
I think one important thing to notice here is that when we create small dots, we always use one color, a so-called spot color, which is already used somewhere else on the box. And the reason is, by doing this, we are not going to add any offset plate for the printing. That means including the security feature adds absolutely no additional cost to the production of the package, which is absolutely key here.
Yeah, so we have a solution that adds no cost for the printing, that is, as you said, invisible, and therefore you do not need to revalidate the design. And the other advantage of being invisible is also that you can simply deploy it at the speed that you need to deploy it, because before you were speaking about the 10,000 SKUs. Yeah. 10,000 different SKUs means that it may take time to have all your products protected, depending on the effort you would like to put on it. And this will be totally transparent for the consumer, and they won't be afraid of buying a package that does not contain the new security feature, because it's just invisible. So they just don't know if there is something new or not.
I think one of the key here is the fact that we don't use special consumable, because it's very important, not only on the cost side, but also from a medical perspective. If you use a special ink, you have to prove in front of the authorities that your special ink does not affect the drug itself. It may sound trivial, but according to regulations, they are very strict about this. That would add tremendous cost.
And then this technology has evolved over the years. So first we had the carton.
Yes.
But then soon we had requests from our customers to also go for labels.
Yes, this is an example of a label which is sticked on the vial. And it's not fundamentally different, except that this is printed entirely in flexography, which is not the case for boxes, which is normally offset lithography. And of course, there is an additional constraint here, is that there is some hard curvature on it.
Yes, and the curvature may generate issue for the light and for the light incidence, and so we had to find a solution to still be able to detect the feature on curved surface.
Yeah, and we did it actually successfully. I think the last result that we got a few months ago, we went down to 1 centimeter, so half an inch of diameter. So that means a very, very strong curvature, and it still detects.
Yes, and we also in parallel went to very small surfaces.
Yes, like this one. Well, this is actually transparent label, which is used to be sticked on the corner of the boxes. And the purpose of this is to make it tamper-proof, so that you have to break this seal to open the box. And we put varnish with macro holes on it on each of these labels. So it's invisible, but still detectable.
Yes, and then in parallel, we also started with the blisters.
Yes.
The blister is special because it is an aluminum foil, so the reflection of the light is very different than with other substrate. And also the surface is small, but there is some, the outside of where the pill is, then there is what we call the sealing pattern. And this is totally unusable. So we have to concentrate on a very small patch, which are dispatched all over.
Yeah, this was really several complications altogether because we are detecting a varnish, which is by itself transparent on a very reflective surface. But this has been working for, I don't know, about 10 years or something like this.
Yes, even more.
Yeah.
Time flies. And so when we were happy with this one and this one, we decided to combine both challenges, and we went for aluminum pouches.
Yes, this is the best of both worlds, actually. You have a very reflective surface on not cylindrical, but smooth surface in 3 dimensions. And this, when did we release this?
A few years ago.
A few years ago already, yeah.
Yes, yes.
And it's working well, so it's been validated and deployed.
Yeah. And so this feature, you've seen it's on every kind of material, and it's always the same. It's just a bitmap. So just a simple file that we give to either the brand owner or the printer. And this file can be either sent by AlpVision to the brand owner, or it can be done even remotely on a server if there is a need for many features.
Yes, the interest here is that some customers in pharma industry asks that for every batch of production, they wanted to have a different pattern of cryptoglyph. And in these conditions, the best was actually to give the power to the printer to download it himself, his personal cryptoglyph, and then create the plate.
Yes, this is a case when such kind of server is needed. The most usual cases is when the customer receive one different cryptoglyph per printer. So they can segregate between the printers, and they can have a control also over the feature and what is printed. You know that everything which is printed with a specific feature comes from this specific printer.
Yes.
And then, so we said the feature can be sent manually or automatically, and then the feature needs to be put into the artwork as we explained before. And this can also be done manually or automatically. So we have some customers doing it in-house by software, and we have other customers asking the printer to do it when they receive the files. So.
Yes, everything is possible. At the end of the day, just a bitmap to integrate to a PDF.
And so it's really, it depends on the process at the customer, and they can decide to apply it at whatever level it is needed. And then we had done a lot with this cryptoglyph technology. So we suddenly got other questions from our customers because they did not want only to detect printed samples, but they wanted to detect real product, directly the product itself.
Yes, which was a very incredible challenge for us because all our know-how was into printing invisible things. And then suddenly we had to detect something where we don't print anything. And for this, we invented a variation of this technology, which is called a fingerprint, where basically I'm holding here a cap, a Pharma cap, okay? And the same stands actually for flip-off caps that you find on injectable vials. And a common characteristics of these plastic products is that the surface is matte. That means there is already a very rich microstructure on it. And somehow, mathematically, it's very similar to the cryptoglyph itself. It's a pattern by itself. The only difference is that we don't know which pattern it is because it's purely random. And what we do is that we acquire one reference image for one molding cavity, and that's enough to secure thousands or millions of products coming from the same mold.
Yes, and so we started with big parts like closures, but very soon we tried also and did very small parts like this flip of tops, and then we also did some bottles like oil bottles or any bottles. So as you see on the screen here, like for the cryptoglyph. The thing is, there is a pattern behind, but the process to check whether it's genuine or fake is very, very simple. You just have to take your app and you launch it, and then you put it over the object and you obtain your result.
So what is interesting here is, once more, it's still invisible. We have not changed anything to the manufacturing process. Actually, that means that there will be no impact again on the validation, and the production cost remains exactly the same as without the feature.
Yes, that's generally the goal of all our technology, yes. Is really to adapt to what is done already and not invent new processes, because this can be complicated to put in place.
Yes.
And then when we had done the closures and the flip-offs, we tried something else. There it is.
So yeah, this is a tablet actually. Then the customer was like this. Oh, okay, Mr. AlpVision, you protected the box. I was not surely safe with this. I wanted also to protect the blister because you could have a genuine box and a fake blister. I wanted to protect the tamper-proof seal. So we did all that. And at the end of the day, he said, yeah, what if you could protect even the tablet which is inside the blister? And we tried something actually.
Yes, and it worked extremely well. So this time we added a structure because of course there was nothing, but we added a structure. We used this tool which is used to do the tablet, and we modified the internal structure of the tool and to create some randomness, some random pattern, and we did it really hard pattern to be sure that when the tablet is coated, then the pattern is still visible.
Yes, and so all the tablets actually had the same macrostructure transferred on it, like fingerprint, and could be authenticated individually. So technically speaking, this was working fine because we could authenticate the tablet itself.
Yes, but commercially it was a failure because yes, because we did not realize that you have to swallow a tablet. So if you want to swallow it, then it needs to be smooth. And we were doing exactly the contrary.
Yeah, by creating the microstructure, we prevented actually people to swallow the tablet, which was a bit counterproductive. So this didn't went to the market.
Yes, but apart from that, the closure and the flip-off went to the market, and we had to do some extensive testing also. And to the contrary to Cryptoglyph, where we were not so involved because there were already a lot of process in place for the printing, and we were just another printing. So we are not really involved in the special testing that was done for the cryptoglyph. Also, it was also done, of course, but for the fingerprint, we were more involved in the different testing that the pharma company requested.
Yeah, because indeed, what we were claiming is that we are able to recover by image comparison the exact microstructure that was molded, and this claim had to be proven. According to GXP regulation, actually, we have to prove that this would work even if the gap goes from -80 to +50 Celsius. So we had to test this robustness against scratching, robustness against ultraviolet radiation. So there was a battery of tests that we went through and showed actually the detection was quite insensitive to all these aggressions. So that was successful testing, and now it's deployed since many years.
Yes, and now the question was, what is the common point between those two technologies? From the requirement of the customer, it was why we were successful. It was because it is fast checking.
Yeah.
What we gave is fast checking for the brand owners. Imagine you have here a box and you want to know whether you need to send it to forensic or not. It's very easy to use technology to have a first answer, and then you can decide if you go for further analysis or not. This is the same for the fingerprint, and fast checking is not the same today than it was 20 years ago.
Yes, this was more devices, because 20 years ago there were actually no smartphones. Okay, no. As unbelievable it can seem. And what we had instead, this bulky equipment, which is called a document scanner, which actually still exists today. And what we used those scanners was actually for scanning, creating a digital image of the box. So the process, and it's still used, I think, by some of our customers even today, is to take the box and put it on the document scanner and launch a software that would scan the surface, analyze the picture, and give the answer.
Yes, that was really extremely fast at that time, because compared to forensic analysis, it was really something quite reliable compared to other techniques, as we mentioned before.
Yes.
And that can be done easily, but that was really fast. And then we needed to improve the speed, and so we now have the smartphone to do the detection. This is now possible because smartphones are much better than they were at the beginning where they went out. But now you have just instant detection with a smartphone.
Yes, and of course, for smartphones, this was a big step, technologically speaking, because here we are imaging actually details of 20 microns across with the document scanner. And the challenge that we had actually was to do the same with a smartphone. But the big difference is that this smartphone is handheld by definition. So it's moving like several centimeters across. Even the distance to the object is changing, and the illumination is totally unpredictable. And despite all this, we still have to give a quick answer and a reliable answer.
Yes, and that was our challenge, and that's what we are doing today. And the advantage of this smartphone is essentially when you want to do some testing and to be discreet, like for instance, when you go in pharmacies, for example, in Africa, you go in pharmacies and you want to check whether the pharmacist is selling genuine medicines or not. Mm-hmm. And you can just take your phone and do some pictures check like that, and then you decide to buy the packages that you cannot authenticate with your fast check. Before that, you needed to go to the pharmacies and buy some random packages and go to your hotel and do the test with a scanner. Now that you can go with your smartphone in the pharmacy, you can buy almost suspect packages, then you go to your hotel and you can recheck in better conditions that may help you discard some of them, but you have a much bigger number of packages that can go to forensic.
Yes.
So that's really an improvement. But it was not only an improvement for our customers, it was also an improvement for the printers, because the printers also, the printers, they have to do quality control, because you have to make sure that they print the feature, else you are not sure that it is on the package. So they have to do quality control. And at the beginning, they did it also with the scanner.
Yeah, and the problem of the scanner is that it works fine, but in a printing environment, this is absolutely not suitable to be near the production line. They had to put it in a separate office. This may sound like a detail, but it's an important detail. That means that actually the driver of the press basically had to stop the production, take a sample, go to the lab, check if it works fine, the quality is correct, come back and start the production again.
Yes, and this was some time that was lost, yes. And the printer were not really happy with that. So we helped them and came up with this kind of device.
Yes, a bit bulky, but still in use, I guess, in many countries, yes. Still today. So basically this device is on a PC with a camera and everything. And the thing is that it's totally embedded, and this can be used directly on the press. So then the press driver can check and immediately say, okay, we go for the run, and we don't waste time. This yes. was one of the big requests.
And the challenge with that was crossing borders, because of course this contain batteries, this contain electronics inside. So it's always complicated to cross borders, but we managed it. But at some point, when the smartphone went better and better, then we decided to also do the quality control with a smartphone. And you can either do it handheld, or you can have this device also, which is much simpler to sense through borders.
Yeah, so it's a very fashionable, 3D printed box. And the purpose of the box here is that you can put the smartphone inside and then use it as a way to control exactly the orientation, the illumination, and then you can perform quality control in a very portable manner and without the problems that Céline mentioned for cross borders. And what you can see on the screen here actually is this box in action. It's very handy, very simple, and does the job perfectly.
Yes, and maybe you can explain the fun fact with a noise that people may hear.
Yeah, actually, the thing in our idea initially, when the detection is successful, there is a beep. The problem is this beep is totally impossible to hear when you are near a press. So what we added is a bar that we can see here on the video, and this bar is a visual indication of the quality of the signal. That's enough for the printer to know, yes, my quality is good, my batch is okay, I can deliver it.
And so now the printers can also use a smartphone to perform the detection, and this will have the same, almost the same thing as the authentication, but it's a bit more severe for them, because we want to have a certain security margin. And for that, we want to make sure that the printers is able to print properly the feature. So what we do is a qualification of the printer. And we started with a qualification. It was really in person.
Yes, actually, initially the qualification was done entirely remotely. We could actually see what was going on the printer side.
Yes, at the beginning you even went there.
Yeah, initially we went physically in each printer to make sure they were doing it right. And this was okay for the first printer. Okay, today we have 250 printers worldwide, so we had to find another solution at some point.
Yes. And the solution was to go for remote authentication. And the first remote authentication was still in-person remote authentication, meaning that the printer was doing some steps and we were checking what they were doing in real time, thanks to files sent via servers.
Yes, correct. And that was working fine. Well, the first authentication went a bit funny, because we are basically all the company was standing behind the screen, where we were checking on the web application when the state of the printer would go like qualified. And when it went to qualify, because the bitmap was uploaded successfully and detected successfully, I went like, yes. And I was.
And you punched Martin in the face.
So we have a co-founder of the company. I punched him in the face, but quite involuntary.
So maybe that's why we decided to have it totally remote then.
Safer.
It's safer. So now what we are doing is simply we give some files to the printers. They have to print it, and then we perform some selection, and then we tell them which one is a proper cryptoglyph. The difference is that at the beginning we found some parameters, and we tried to teach the printer how to print this exact cryptoglyph. And as time evolves, we realized that it would be easier if we change the cryptoglyph based on what the printer is capable of doing. And that's why we are now able to be totally remote, is because we have many different cryptoglyphs, and we will select the one which is the good one for the printer, depending on his printing parameters.
Yeah, because we will notice that this is the best way to ensure reliability in the long term. If the printer has to make a special effort only for us, the printer driver may change in the future, and then they may lose this know-how. So it's better that we adapt so they work exactly as usual, and it always works. This is what we want, reliability.
Yes. And so all these points we mentioned in this webinar so far, cryptoglyph, fingerprint, anything, it was all not specific to pharma industry. It can be applied to any industry. But what was really specific to pharma industry was the validation process.
Yes, actually, when we came to our first pharma printer, they asked us if we had validated software. And we didn't understand what was the meaning of this word, validated. And then we discovered what it meant. And it meant a lot, because in the pharma industry, this is a regulated industry. You have to prove that you manufacture everything according to GXP regulations. And these regulations say that you have to describe by documentation exactly how you designed, in particular, in our case, the software itself that authenticates. And this is what we see here on the slide. That means it starts with documents specifying what do you want to achieve. This is a user requirements specification. And then there is another document that describes what functions you are going to implement in software to match the user, the URLs. And then the design specification explains how you design the application and the user interface and everything to match the functional specification. Then we build. And then there is IQ, when you actually check, you qualify exactly that you've installed correctly the software. You have operation qualification, when you check that the functional things are met. So it's also about testing. And the PQ, you finally check that it does exactly what you intended to do at the end.
Yes, and this was something that we were totally ignorant at the beginning. And we had at that time the help of our customer, because as we said at the beginning of the webinar, our feature was so good and pragmatic that it was okay for them to help us put all this validation system in place to be up to speed with this validation. And we also did some trainings, because then we got other customers that required also this validation. We even did standard AlpVision software, which were validated. And we have seen that, yes, this computer software validation is sometimes needed by our customers, but not always, because it really depends if the software is considered or not as GXP critical. And this really depends on internal process. So this is not something that we will impose or we can have an influence. No, it's really depending on internal process at the customers. Either it's GXP critical or it's not. And if it's GXP critical, we have to go through this development model, and we can do it now. It's absolutely no problem. It's just that takes a bit more time, it takes a bit more money, but it can be done. And in case it's not necessary, then we are of course, validating all our software now, and but they are validated according to ISO 9001, and we are following, of course, ISO 27001 also. So it's one or the other validation, depending on what is required by the customer. And then another thing that changed a lot over the years was the server. The server, when we started, it was just something to make sure that the printers are doing the quality control and downloading the feature if the feature has to be downloaded from a server. And that's it. And over the year, what became more and more important is the data.
Yes, actually, because at the beginning, the pharma companies deploying our solutions were obsessed, actually exactly like us, by the success of the implementation. This was all about implementation because these are very big worldwide deployments. And then when it was successful, what happened quite quickly after that is that the management came and said, okay, you successfully deployed this worldwide. Congratulations. Is it useful? What do you do with this? How does it help against counterfeiting? And this is all about reporting. And this is when we came actually with server functions that are able to centralize all the detections done by all the people worldwide in one place. And this is what we see on this slide, when you can see the monthly activity, the number of authentications performed, the result, and you can see on the right-hand side a map that gives actually real-time picture of what is going on in the world concerning authentication of your product.
Yes, that's really something that can be used by the people in charge in order to do some reports for the management and also take some actions depending on what is happening. And then the actions can be completely different from company to company. But if you know that you have to do some checks somewhere in Africa, and you see that you have too many checks in one country and not enough in another, you could also see what actions you want to perform. And then when you get suspect result, you can decide what you want to do for this suspect result. So it's really very, very interesting. It can be used as reporting, but also as a vector for doing actions, because it will be analysis of the data and then actions based on this analysis. And also another thing that has evolved a lot over the last years is that at the beginning, we only developed for iPhone because at the beginning, all our applications were internal use applications, and all the companies could decide to buy such and such phone for this specific application. So it was really easy, and we went only for iPhone. But now what happened is that not in the pharma industry, but in other industries, we have started to go for consumer. So consumers are also using Android, are not only using iPhone. And even in pharma industry, companies now more and more have a bring your own device company policy. Yes. And so it means that people may arrive also with Android phones.
Yeah, and that was quite a challenge actually for two reasons. One fundamental reason is that on the smartphones, we have single processing chips that enable to have very fast computing capabilities. And going to Android, we didn't have this chip, so we had to adapt the algorithm to still perform the same without having this hardware acceleration. And in addition to this, Android, obviously, you have a huge variability of the device. So I think, how many devices did we have?
Yes, we checked it on a server, which is a consumer base, of course, but we had more than 3,000 different Android models.
Yeah, so that means that despite the variability of the models, in particular location of the camera and the flash, we still should be able to have a reliable and fast detection. So this is the challenge that we faced and that we where we were successful, hopefully.
Yes, so now we have seen what has changed last year. So maybe a word about the future. What is the future?
Well, actually, now that we've done successful implementation of apps, both on iPhones and Android, some customers are starting to ask, well, Mr. AlpVision, it would be even better if it would work without apps at all. Okay, which seems like a joke actually, but this is customer requirements. Okay, so we have to look at it, and we started actually to find solutions and which are already actually used in some countries, where what we do is actually we use the camera to stream the information directly to a website. That means the end user doesn't install an app; it just goes to a web page. The web page automatically opens the camera and then sends the video stream to the server, which is detects in real time and gives the conclusion.
So we are back to the server detection that we did at the beginning of the of the phone implementation.
Yeah, that's right.
That was also funny. You remember we tried when we started implementing a solution for phones, we did like for the scanner, we take a picture, we ask the server to give us an answer, and we realized it did not work at all, because most of the time the picture was bad, it was blurred or something like that. And more problematic than that, it took 2 minutes for the bitmap to go to the server and come back, and then we got only bad images.
Yeah, I think one of the big differences is what happened is that the bandwidth and the latency of the networks has evolved a lot.
Yes.
And as a result, what we are now able to do is really to stream at like easily 10 frames per second directly to the server. And that means that for the end user, it seems still like instant.
Yes, it still seems to be done on the phone.
Yeah, but that's funny because as you say, most of the pictures are bad actually and fail. But if you detect so many pictures in less than 2 seconds, you just get an answer, and that's enough for the people to be happy.
Yes, and this is something which is already implemented as pilots, so it's not science fiction. It's really the next steps for AlpVision.
Yes, there is this. If we talk about future, there is this direction. Obviously, this is going to happen. There is another direction which is about traceability. So now we come back again. Now, 23 years later, some pharma companies start to ask traceability, but invisible traceability. So, and this can also be done. We are working on this when we have variable versions of the Cryptoglyph, for instance, which can embed some dots of varnish with digital printing, different patterns, when you can have a variable code and then detect still with a smartphone, recover unique code without adding anything special.
And this is also already pilot.
Yeah, actually, yes. It was the production started in October last year. So and it's running well so far.
Great. So I think we have basically gone through this 20 years journey.
Okay.
That's great. So if you have any question, just put them in the chat box or in the QA list. I will open it, and I also received some question in advance, so maybe I can just check and open Q&A. Okay, yes, apparently the chat is deactivated, so don't hesitate to put your questions in the question box. And in the meantime, we can go through the questions that were sent by email. So there was one question which was, what are the key factors that led your customers to choose AlpVision over other solutions? I think we partially answered it when you said it was pragmatic, it was invisible.
Yeah, the fact that we didn't use dedicated consumable was very important, because you have to remember a number of security features even today are using, for instance, special inks. And special inks is really not convenient when you go in pharma. You have to prove that your special ink is not going to be to be a problem for the drug inside, for the activity of the drug. And by itself, this is going to induce cost. Moreover, you have to handle the processing, handling of this special consumable. So this is one of the big point, actually. Of course, with the fact that this is a machine now that gives the answer. If you look at the hologram, for instance, you have to understand and to make a judgment whether what you see is really a hologram or some imitation of a hologram. In the case of what we are showing here, it's machine authentication. Actually, as a user, you don't know what's going on. It's automatic.
Yes, I think that was the key point.
Yes,
for our customer to choose our solution. Then there is a second question. Do your consumer typically use AlpVision as well as other technologies, example, other solution as anti-counterfeiting solutions, or do they use AlpVision alone as an anti-counterfeiting solution to be incorporated into the products? Well, it depends. Most of the company, they have a multi-layer approach. It's really important to, like, for example, if you take the banknotes, there are, I don't know, 20 different features.
20 features on euro banknote, actually.
Yeah, and you don't know, some are known to the public, some are not known. So basically for our customers, like pharma companies, it's the same. They have some features. Some of them even put some explanations, like Fred explained at the beginning, the thing about the difference in designs and so on. And some companies, they even put this kind of thing on their website so that people can check it. And then they have other solutions like ours, which is hidden. They have other solutions like holograms or like microtext or any other solutions.
You have actually some big pharma companies that you can go on their website and for some pieces which are very, very famous actually, and you can they explain what is the shape of the genuine tablet and what is the shape of the counterfeit tablet. So, and this works, and this has absolutely no cost on manufacturing, obviously. Of course, the problem of this is that, well, it's not easy. You have really to look carefully the real from the fake, and the worst is that the bad guys are also looking to the web page, so they know how to correct.
Yes, of course. And then a third question here, then I can go into the question box. How do your customers specifically use the AlpVision solution in their overall anti-counterfeiting action? So I think we've already answered the case of, for instance, going into pharmacies to check if it's genuine or not. We have the case, it's not in pharma industry, but they go to some shops and do testing in shops. We have cases where
they buy online, I see.
They buy online. We have cases where they take a package from the dustbin.
Yes.
And see if it's authentic or not.
We have also some customs have access to the app and use it. So
yes, we also have that. So there are many use cases, and the thing is that we are not always aware of what our customers are doing because they have the app, they have the server, and then they decide what they do. Sometimes we can access to the logs to help them doing some reports, but we don't really know what's going on behind. It's really they appropriate themselves this technology.
Yeah, that's the beauty of the approach, is to let the customer handle basically everything autonomously. So, and I mean, it's quite a reliable technique in the sense that we protect, I think, about 30 billion products per year, okay? And we don't have many issues. So that means the technology is by itself very redundant and reliable. So,
yes.
So that means this is why they can work on their own.
And then another question is, what do you see as the key trends in anti-counterfeiting technology over the next 5 years?
Well, I think the server-side detection that I mentioned, when we're streaming directly from the camera to a server, is going to increase. You know, this started with with WeChat. WeChat is an application that is used in China for basically everything, okay? And Chinese customers always want to have this kind of application. This application works only server side. So we started with this, and now we are working on through the website directly. So I think this is one direction. Well, actually, the other direction that is also the future for us that we mentioned is invisible traceability, which is the top of the top, actually. So.
And another question then, how do you see the integration of AI with your ACF technologies, enhancing overall security and traceability? Well, AI is already into our apps.
Yes.
It's already used to do some machine learning.
Yeah, there is a number of applications. In some cases, we have customers who want to have the app say not only authentic, but sometimes they want the app to say fake. Okay, and if you want an app to say fake, it's actually way more challenging. And this is where we currently use a lot of AI, because if I have an app and a capture, for instance, the sailing, okay, it's not going to detect the cryptoglyph on the sailing because obviously there is no cryptoglyph on the sailing, okay? That means that the app should be smart enough to recognize that this is the sailing and this is not a vial, therefore it's normal and it's not a fake sailing. So, and the trick of AI say, okay, I recognize this is a legitimate picture of the customer, and the picture is of sufficient quality so that it should detect. It can only detect. And the only reason why it would fail is that it's a fake. So this is one of the application of the AI. And of course, there is also about the detection speed. The detection speed is, I take my smartphone, I take my box. How many seconds are going to be elapsed before I have a successful detection? And AI can help us, already helps us actually quite a lot, that when you position even roughly, the application guesses where is the exact position of the box, instantly goes on the right location and detects the cryptoglyph or the fingerprint. So just to gain some speed and user friendliness.
And we also had the case, and it's not in pharma industry, but we have the case of having the app helping the user. Because this is what you said is one thing is to use what you have, and the other way is to give instructions also to the user and show him where to position properly to obtain a good result.
Yes, these are the three different usage I see of AI indeed. So
yeah. So I see no more questions in the question box. Are there any other questions? Don't hesitate to put them in the box. We are still here for a few minutes. I think that everybody got his answers.
Yes, I guess so, yeah.
Yeah, so thank you everybody for participating to this webinar, and I will just stop the sharing, and so just thank you everybody, and maybe see you to the next webinar.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, goodbye.